be with us as we share in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, first of all, I want to stress again the importance of keeping our health in general and our immune system in the best shape possible, because as you see, flu viruses, including the SARS-CoV-2 virus that causes COVID-19, these viruses are capable of mutations, and then the mutants may not be as susceptible to the vaccines developed for the original virus. And it means then that as time goes on and other viral infections occur, and other pandemics are likely, it is going to be of primary importance that we keep our immune systems well regulated. But before I get to that, I just want to share some words from an expert who was talking this week about the importance of adequate vitamin D levels, which we know of before, but of taking the vitamin D with vitamin K2 to ensure adequate vitamin D levels, and also to ensure that the calcium is directed to where it is needed to be directed for strong bones, and not to be deposited in tissues, organs, and most importantly, not to be deposited in our arteries. And of course, we get vitamin K from a whole host of vegetables, green leafy vegetables, but K2 is usually dependent upon good, healthy gut bacteria to convert the ordinary K into K2, which is the form of vitamin K that directs calcium away from tissues like arteries and into bone by a fairly complex biochemical pathway. And so it is usually advised that we either take the vitamin D, a vitamin D supplement with K2, or take K2, or we can get the cabbage that we mentioned before and grate it or slice it up, put some salt with it, and let it ferment to produce its own K2 sauerkraut. But vitamin K2 is important along with vitamin D for helping to maintain vitamin D levels. We now know that we know, of course, the two of them are fat soluble vitamins, but the vitamin K2 enhances vitamin D's action and helps to direct calcium appropriately away from arteries. We don't want our arteries calcified, and into bone. We want our bones to be strong. So the sunlight vitamin, very important. Sunlight, vitamin D, but vitamin K2 is important along with vitamin D in helping to keep calcium out of arteries and other soft tissues and into bone. So the two work together. Vitamin D and vitamin K2 work together to help maintain efficient vitamin D levels and help to direct calcium where it is to be directed, into bone and not into soft tissues, and certainly not into our arteries. That is important. So I just thought I would mention that first. Now, since viruses can, flu viruses can mutate, the COVID virus can mutate, we will always be trying to play catch up with them at the scientific level with vaccines and antiviral drugs and so on. And of course, that has its place and will go on. But fundamental is therefore keeping our immune systems in the best possible shape, so that if any virus mutates so that a previous vaccine is less effective, we're going to have to fall back on the strength of our immune system to be able to successfully defend or overcome the particular viral infection. So let's just recap before we move on to a new subject. Let us just recap again on the keeping your immune system strong. It is important to understand that keeping our immune system strong is not a one-off shot, taking this pill or the next pill or doing something all of a sudden. It has to be a matter of lifestyle, consistency, primary prevention lifestyle, consistently followed. Because we now know that junk foods, I was just listening to a researcher who said that junk foods are immunity killers. They dysregulate the immune system. And I had told you ever since last year, Dr. Malotra, cardiologist and health educator prevention specialist in UK, mentioned that in the UK and a lot across Europe and the USA, eating junk is a hobby. And he said even medical professionals and in hospitals, what is being sold is alarmingly junk. And the immune system is dysregulated by that kind of food. So if you want a healthy immune system, you first of all have to avoid junk, which means all the refined processed sugars and refined processed carbs and refined processed meats, and get back to the principle of eating whole, natural food whole. So in our modern world, poor, unhealthy diet, the junk foods, are largely responsible for almost all of the chronic non-communicable diseases and also dysregulation of the immune system. So let's look at the primary prevention lifestyle factors for keeping the immune system in good shape. We mentioned some of them before just to go over. Adequate sleep, 7 to 8 hours sleep at night. And remember, the hours before midnight are more important than the hours after. So even if you go to sleep after midnight and sleep 8 hours, that is after midnight till 9 the next morning, you're not going to get the same impact on your health as going to bed before midnight and getting some hours of sleep before midnight. That has to do with the melatonin cycle and other mysterious hormones. Very important. 7 to 8 hours sleep and a couple, 2 to 3 of those hours before midnight for optimal impact of sleep on good health and on the immune system. Exercise, very important. Daily exercise, at least 5 days a week. Exercise is critically important, and sometimes we fall down here. People say they're too busy, they have to rush, but you should make time consistently for exercise 4 to 5 days a week. You don't have to do a lot. Half an hour is pretty good, but if you can do more. But consistent exercise and walking is considered still the best. Swimming is very good too, but then you have to be able to swim. And there's the caution about what could happen in the water. But so walking and the combination of adequate sleep at night and consistent moderate exercise, that combination does a lot for the immune system. Even before we get to diet, that combination, exercise is very good for the immune system. Sleep is very good for the immune system. Avoiding junk is very good for the immune system. And avoiding other injurious things like alcohol, tobacco, illicit drugs, refined sugars, and dangerous fats. Okay. Another important factor here in keeping our immune systems in tip-top shape applies to all of us, avoiding anxiety. We live in a stressful world. There are problems all around. We all face stress. We all face problems. But coping with these problems, learning to relax, ignore stressors, cope with them. As believers, of course, as Christians, we know the importance of a good devotional life and prayer and reading the Bible and reading the Spirit of prophecy and claiming the promises of God. Looking at nature and enjoying nature, exercise in nature is an excellent way to diffuse stress. Open air exercise in nature. Swimming and looking at the creation in the ocean, looking at the trees as we walk. So exercise in the open air, enjoying nature, devotional life, prayer, wholesome music, like classical music, spiritual music, very relaxing, mechanisms of coping with stress, claiming the promises of God and setting our willpower not to be agitated by stressors, whether those stressors are other people or whatever, and seeking, as we heard in the Divine Hour this morning, the Isaiah 32 text 17, in the way of righteousness is quietness and peace, and in surrender to God and claiming his promises and resting in the finished work of Christ, we have the greatest peace of mind. And we have the Holy Spirit as the comforter and, of course, God to help us. So that is important because one piece of research is showing that chronic anxiety not only impacts upon overall health, but it dysregulates the immune system as well. Chronic anxiety, chronic worrying. So the ability to relax, enjoy nature, exercise in the open air, find our peace of mind in God, and therefore diffuse any buildup of anxiety and stress. That is important for good health and for keeping the immune system in tip-top shape. Relaxation, peace of mind, very important. Remaining adequately hydrated is also a general principle, and a lot of us fall down there. I know, for example, I need to consistently aim to drink more water. So drinking more water. We're not talking about overdoing, but remaining adequately hydrated, especially people living in certain hot climates. They may be out in the hot sun because temperatures in North America, whereas they're very, very cool in winter, can be very, very hot in summer. And people up there get what we call heat stroke. The temperature goes up, they get dehydrated, blood pressure falls, and they can collapse. But that is an acute situation. At the chronic level, adequate hydration is important for brain function and for the immune system function as well. Those are general principles. And then just to go over the specific things that are important for keeping our immune system in tip-top shape, we are, as Seventh Adventist believers, we know we are approaching the end. We are in the end times, approaching the final crisis. According to the prophecies, Jesus himself says, pestilences, earthquakes, the sea and its waves roaring, increasing calamities, increasing pandemics. We can't predict. Science and the experts will have no answer. And we've been given a health message that is important for keeping our bodies in general and our immune systems specifically, now that we are talking about infection, in tip-top shape to handle scourges that pass. Because to get through the final crisis, we have to survive physically. And although we depend on the grace of God, and that is crucial, God has given us important information. And there's a quotation someone sent me from the Spirit of Prophecy, which says, he's given us the knowledge to care our bodies. And we are not to throw back that responsibility on him while neglecting the light of caring our bodies, which he has given. So we can't transgress and then pray for a miracle. We have to walk in the light of primary prevention, advancing health reform, and trust in God, take care of our bodies as according to the light he gives us. All right, so going over these principles, very important for a good immune system, fruits and vegetables. And the fruits, the citrus. Citrus contains citrus bioflavonoids and vitamin C, both of which are critically good for health and the immune system. All of the citrus fruits, very good. And some of them contain carotenes, and some of them, for example, the pink or red grapefruit even contains lycopene. Of course, the thing about grapefruit is that if you're on medication, it may alter through a mechanism in the liver the level of the particular medication. So you usually see people on amlodipine, which is a blood pressure medication, or atorvastatin, Lipitor, which is a statin for high cholesterol. There may be a directive on the label by the pharmacist to avoid grapefruit because of how it impacts on a liver enzyme, and the liver enzyme may quickly get rid of the particular medication and render it less effective. But that apart, all of the citrus, of course, we know that the tangerines are more friendly for the female breast. They contain tangeritin, a bioflavonoid that modulates the estrogen receptor. So tangerines very good for women. But all of the citrus, good sources of bioflavonoids and vitamin C. And then the berries are packed with powerful polyphenol, bioflavonoid, antioxidants. Blueberries good for brain, but all of them strengthen the immune system, both the innate and the adaptive immune systems. Then, of course, the fruits of color, pawpaw, mango, though sweet and has a high fructose and sucrose content, and therefore people with obesity and prediabetes and so on shouldn't overdo. Mango has received a lot of bad press because of that, but mango is really, well, as I think Dr. Karamita mentioned that in a talk with the kids sometime couple afternoons, Sabbath afternoons ago. Mango is a powerfully nutrient-dense fruit packed with polyphenols, bioflavonoids, and a range of carotenoids and other antioxidants. So it is a good fruit. Like everything else, we should not overdo. But and certainly in diabetes and prediabetes, you have to be careful of all things that are sweeter than average. But mango is a good immune boosting fruit as well. Pawpaw. And then a fruit we don't, we wish we could get more, but Mammy apple. Mammy apple is rich in fiber and rich in alpha carotene and beta carotene as well. And the carotene strengthen the immune system. So fruits for vitamin C, for bioflavonoids, for polyphenols. And then the vegetables. Nothing is as good for the immune system like vegetables, especially the green leafy vegetables, and of course the other vegetables of color. The red giving lycopene and the purple giving polyphenols like purple cabbage. Excellent stuff. And as we said before, you can slice up cabbage and put some salt to it and cover it in a bottle and let it become sauerkraut, the original German term for it, and it is rich in vitamin K2. which, as I just said, works with vitamin D to keep calcium in bone and out of arteries and to help vitamin D to be more efficient in its function. But the vegetables of color, green leafy vegetables, I recently was listening to a Chinese and an American expert in this area, and they said that there's nothing like a green leafy vegetables, all of them, for the immune system. The cruciferous vegetables, especially broccoli and Brussels sprouts, watercress, kale. Sometimes you will see in the social media or in the videos some question marks over kale. There is the question mark that the cruciferous vegetables in people who have a genetic disturbance in any of the enzymes in the thyroid gland responsible for making the thyroid hormones, thyroxine and triiodothyronine, that there are goitrogens in some vegetables that can interfere with how the thyroid takes up iodine. And people who are so susceptible, it may tend to worsen a tendency to underactivity of the thyroid gland. But that is not a big problem, because if a person is tending towards low thyroid function, you're going to have to be diagnosed and put on thyroxine. And it is not going to be the vegetable alone. There will have to be an autoimmune or a genetic tendency to underfunction. But you will see that coming up in various videos. Then they say too that in certain soils, especially North American soils, kale can take up a substance called thallium excessively, and that can be a cause for concern. I don't think in the South American and Caribbean areas we have much of that problem. And then they're worried too that the kale leaf can absorb more than others some of the pesticides, but that is why, again, you can grow your own kale in your backyard and use no chemicals on it at all. And you that wouldn't be a problem. But we see these videos coming up, and sometimes they can frighten people. People have asked me about the things they have read about negative things on kale. So I just thought I would mention that. But broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, the green leafy vegetables, and of course the cruciferous vegetables contain sulforaphane, and sulforaphane is such a good sulfur-containing compound for all parts of the body: cancer prevention, brain, liver health, and immune strengthening. As I said, immune strengthening is not something you can rush to get. You have to be living a lifestyle and following a diet to keep your immune system in tip-top shape. So some people wait until a virus passes, then to go and eat citrus and so on to get the vitamin D up, but it doesn't work that way. You have to be consistently following the principles of health reform and primary prevention: your fruits every day, your vegetables every day, your exercise every day, adequate sleep every night, a consistent lifestyle to keep all of your organs and the immune system in tip-top shape, rather than waiting until something happens, then to try a crash program. It doesn't work for the immune system that way. So the green leafy vegetables, we should be consistent with them. They're best eaten raw, especially when we grow them in our own backyards and we know we've used no chemicals. We can just wash them and eat them. Broccoli and those, if you're going to steam them, just lightly steam some lightly, eat some raw. But the cruciferous vegetables, and of course, then the yellow vegetables, carrots and butternut squash, those yellow vegetables rich in the carotenes, again, very good for all the organs, cancer prevention and so on, and the immune system. And lycopene, tomato and guava and red watermelon, but especially tomato and tomato products. Lycopene is such a powerful protector overall, and also strengthens the immune system. These antioxidants, these carotenes, along with vitamin C, help the white blood cells to function more efficiently, help the bone marrow to produce more white blood cells, and help the white blood cells to respond efficiently. Whereas sugar, refined sugar, has been shown to actually paralyze the white blood cells. So in a high sugar environment, white blood cells and macrophages move sluggishly, so the virus will laugh at them. Whereas when there is a low sugar environment, and that is why prediabetes and diabetes renders COVID-19 infection so severe, because your own white blood cells and macrophages and immune cells are going to be rendered half dead by high blood sugars or by sugars that spike after a meal. So avoiding the refined sugar, avoiding refined processed carbohydrates. And some researchers are saying that, I'll come to that in a minute, a little honey with lemon, that combination is very good for the immune system. You don't want to be excessive with the honey, but it is better than sugar because of the certain ingredients in it exert antimicrobial effects as well as immune stimulating effects. So remember the cruciferous vegetables. I mentioned the citrus. Let me just come back to the citrus fruits a minute. I mentioned the importance of lemons are very good. The lemon juice, squeeze it in water and drink it, because some people, for some reason, don't just like the taste of plain water. A little lemon juice in it will help. And even lemon juice and blending or grating, mincing a little bit of the lemon skin, powerful bioflavonoids as well for stomach and immune health. I was hearing a nutrition expert mentioning lemon juice with a little ginger and a tip of honey and turmeric on mornings for people who have a struggle in terms of the immune system to help consistently to bring it up. Lemon juice, an important citrus fruit. Okay, so back to the vegetables. All of the vegetables, especially the green leafy vegetables and the vegetables of color, we were just mentioning lycopene, are important. So what the experts are saying, there is nothing better for your immune system than a healthy diet with a variety and an abundance of fruits and vegetables and a lot of green leafy vegetables. And then the color vegetables, purple cabbage, the lycopene containing reds and so on. So important for the variety, the color, but the green leafy vegetables are foundational for a good immune system. So fruits and veg, and avoid junk food, and avoid the white flour, and avoid the refined processed carbohydrates, and avoid the refined sugars, and adequate sleep at night, and moderate exercise every day. These are important principles, more important than any supplement for maintaining your immune system in tip-top shape. Primary prevention, healthy lifestyle as a way of life. And as Seventh Adventists, we've had this kind of light for long before modern medical science even developed epidemiology. The writings of the Spirit of Prophecy from the 1870s mention these principles. It's amazing. So continuing on, high fiber foods also are not only good for overall health, but also good for the immune system, because high fiber foods, soluble fiber included, are important for good intestinal bacterial health. We call it the healthy gut bacterial flora, the microbiome. And when the gut bacteria are healthy, we now know, recent years of research, that good healthy gut bacteria impact positively on the immune system and on the entire body from head to toe. Good gut bacteria. So the roots, carrots and beets and turmeric and all the sweet potatoes and so on, the roots, yams are those, the roots contain the fiber, and even the green leafy vegetables as well, contain the fiber that the healthy gut bacteria like to feed on. And when they get healthier, they make the immune system stronger. Whereas refined processed junk and refined processed meat, bad bacteria like Helicobacter pylori in the stomach like to feed on junk and refined processed meat products, increasing the risk of trouble in the stomach. Helicobacter pylori, chronic gastritis, peptic ulcers, and in the long run, even gastric cancer. So eating healthy is not only going to be directly affecting us, but it's going to be indirectly impacting on us by making healthier gut bacteria, and that enhances the immune system. So fruits and vegetables, you can't get away from that principle. Exercise and sleep, beating anxiety with relaxation and peace of mind. And then, of course, then specific things we had mentioned, ginger, containing gingerol. Ginger is anti-inflammatory and also impacts positively on the immune system. Cloves, very good for the stomach. Clove, you can put it in your cooking, put a dash in your tea or whatever. But cloves also anti-inflammatory, immune stimulating. Garlic. Garlic strengthens the immune system, and garlic exerts on its own antimicrobial properties. Garlic, whether you use the fresh garlic or in your cooking or the aged garlic extract or garlic supplement. Some people, it may cause excess gas because certain good bacteria may be stimulated to act on it more vigorously, but you can tolerate the gas. But garlic is very, very good for the immune system and exerts its own antimicrobial power. And of course, turmeric. Well, we've said so much about turmeric, curcumin, anti-inflammatory, powerfully antioxidant, helps to reduce and prevent a whole host of cancers and fight them, and very good for the immune system. Turmeric. We can use the root in our smoothies. We can use the powder. We can put it in our foods. Curcumin, turmeric. And all the other herbs like sage and marjoram and thyme, THYME, all of them have powerful anti-inflammatory, antioxidant molecules that enhance immune system function. Well, the specific vitamins we've mentioned before, vitamin C, which you get from your fruits and vegetables, and you can supplement as well. Vitamin C, vitamin E, best had from our nuts, walnuts, almonds, sunflower seeds, green leafy vegetables, spirulina and chlorella. All those things are, green leafy vegetables are a good source of vitamin E. Nuts are a good source of vitamin E, and flax. And if you're supplementing with vitamin E, they don't recommend a high supplement dose, no more than 200 to 400 units of a natural vitamin E. But your nuts, like walnuts, are a good source of gamma E, and gamma vitamin E is very protective of organs, brain, prostate, and the immune system. Walnuts. Almonds, also a good source of gamma E, and so almonds and walnuts, sunflower seeds, green leafy vegetables, you get vitamin E. Vitamin D, the sunlight vitamin, we've gone over this over and over again. So important for keeping your immune system in tip-top shape. And so many people are vitamin D deficient and don't know. They assume that since they're living in a sunny climate, that they get sunlight, and they don't. And they have adequate vitamin D levels, and they don't know. And I meet it every day in practice. People don't know what their vitamin D level is like. They don't get any sunlight. They don't take a supplement. And if they get checked by cardiologists or somebody else, it is woefully low. So remember the importance of the sunlight and vitamin D along with vitamin K2 to balance its function. And now we come to beta-glucans. Beta-glucans found in oats, for example, but mushrooms, all the research indicates that mushrooms are excellent for the immune system because the beta glucans in mushrooms actually provoke the immune system, stimulate it, and get it cracking. The immune system sees the beta glucans as something to stimulate them to attack. And therefore, the innate immune system, the first responder phase of the immune system, is powerfully impacted positively by mushrooms. All of the mushrooms, not just the medicinal ones, but the edible ones. Portobello, which we get here in Barbados, which is really the mature white button mushroom. And the white button mushroom is wonderful because it is anti-inflammatory, contains ergothioneine, which is so good for the brain, enhances the immune system powerfully by the beta glucans, is anti-inflammatory, and also recent research, as I told you about that recent research recently, eating 18 grams of mushroom a day reduces, that's about 2 or 3 mushrooms a day, they say will reduce your cancer risk by 45%. And mushroom supplements are available. The powders are now available here in Barbados, and you can always order, but from Amazon, for example. But mushrooms are very good. You can use more of them in your cooking and so on, but mushrooms are very good for stimulating the immune system as well, powerful enhancers of the immune system. So if you want an immune system to be on top in case mutant variations of viruses are coming along, your vitamin D and K2, your fruits and vegetables, adequate sleep, consistent exercise, avoiding anxiety, and then mushroom or mushroom supplement. You can put the mushroom powders in your smoothies. You can cook with mushrooms from the supermarket in your food, but mushrooms powerfully impact the immune system and get the innate part of the immune system ready to strike should a virus come a knocking. Of course, there is in mushroom not only the beta glucans, and some of them are very unique and mysteriously powerful, like the polysaccharoproteins, PSK and PSP, powerful stuff to stimulate the immune system and to fight cancers. And a lot of research, as I told you, is going on in the whole mushroom area, white button, the Brazilian mushroom called Agaricus blazei, reishi, of course, which is Ganoderma, which is the Chinese used to call the mushroom of immortality, and then turkey tail mushroom, which all of them very, very, very powerful indeed. And then there's one called Shega, which we don't see much this part of the world. A lot of research going on. Powerful enhancers of the immune system and powerful reducers of carcinogenesis. So as viruses mutate, whatever virus, ordinary flu, this COVID now, and therefore previous vaccines, we may wonder if the new mutant will be as susceptible and so on. We therefore need to understand that the bottom line in all of this is to keep our general health and our immune health in as best shape as possible by following the principles of primary prevention and health reform, which we've gone over umpteen times. Exercise, rest, fruits and vegetables, your beans and peas and whole grains, your nuts, and you have to keep stressing the green leafy vegetables, and a healthy diet, avoiding refined junk and processed junk, and avoiding the refined sugars and so on. And don't forget that obesity tends to dysregulate the immune system. So pay attention to your body mass index and don't let it go up, because the excess fat will cause insulin resistance. Insulin resistance means you're going to get a higher average blood sugar, even though it may not yet be in the diabetic range, as we said last week, maybe in the pre-diabetic range, and that will still dysregulate the immune system. So these principles of health reform, which we as a denomination have had for since the latter part of the 1800s, and now research is showing that this health reform message we've had is bang on target. We should gratefully thank God and live up to the principles of health reform. Just let me touch on a natural molecule found in our bodies. Every cell contains it, but as we get older, it tends to be produced in lower amounts, and a lot of research has been and it continues to be done on it. A molecule called alpha lipoic acid. Some people call it ALA, but I prefer not, because ALA is also the initials for alpha linolenic acid, which is totally different. So alpha lipoic acid is a molecule in every cell in our body. It is produced in the mitochondria. And now mitochondria are the organelles. Organelle, the term organelle means a little organ inside the cell. Imagine that we, as whole bodies, we have organs, liver, heart, lungs, and so on. But every cell, tiny as that cell is, has its own organs called organelles: mitochondria, the Golgi apparatus, the endoplasmic reticulum, the nucleus, and so on. And mitochondria are the factories for energy in the cell. Because when you metabolize sugar, glucose, the end product is pyruvic acid, which then is converted to acetyl coenzyme A. That must go into the mitochondria and be oxidized completely to water and carbon dioxide to produce the energy currency of the body, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So the mitochondria produce ATP. The thing about mitochondria is that they are affected by age, and they are quickly affected by chronic diseases. They're affected by bad diet. They're affected by free radicals. So we need to protect our mitochondria. Hence, don't burn them out with excessive sugar. Don't burn them out with junk foods. The green leafy vegetables and so on help to protect them. Vitamin E helps to protect them and so on, and all the antioxidants. But this alpha lipoic acid, which the mitochondria actually make, and which declines with age, and the mitochondria are so fragile. And the research is showing now that alpha lipoic acid, which comes in, and I'll talk more about this next time, in two isomers, the R form and the S form. But alpha lipoic acid is a mitochondrial protector. Keeps the mitochondria from aging prematurely, helps the mitochondria to replicate, because if you run out of mitochondria, you're going to be in trouble. You can't survive without every cell that having mitochondria. The only cells that don't carry mitochondria, of course, would be the red blood cells, and but the key cells, the immune system cells, carry mitochondria. The liver, heart, the heart muscle must have, every heart muscle cell must have a full complement of these mitochondria, singular mitochondria and plural mitochondria, to make ATP, which is the energy unit to get everything going. And the research has shown that alpha lipoic acid helps to protect mitochondria from aging. And then when people have diabetes and develop diabetic neuropathy, which is tingling and pain and numbness because the nerves are on edge because of the diabetes, or after chemotherapy, sometimes people get severe neuropathy. The nerves are all on edge. The myelin sheath is ripped off. Alpha lipoic acid is wonderful for preventing and fighting any kind of neuropathy. especially diabetic neuropathy, helps to heal the nerves. Alpha lipoic acid, it is anti-aging, it is anti-inflammatory. The thing about alpha lipoic acid, uh, and you get it from vegetables, you get it from certain foods, but you don't get enough. So they usually recommend that when you pass a certain age. It is a cheap supplement. Uh, I see one nutritionist says she usually recommends 300 to 600 milligrams a day. If people are diabetic, they can go up. With aging, you can go up because the research is now showing that it not only protects the mitochondria and increases the energy level, it helps with fat metabolism, and within the context of a healthy diet and eating less calories can help weight loss. But one very good thing about alpha lipoic acid is that it reduces insulin resistance. Therefore, it makes the tissues more responsive to insulin, and that will mean that you will not get the same kind of blood sugar spikes after eating, and the HbA1c wouldn't tend to be going up into the pre-diabetic range. Alpha lipoic acid strengthens the heart muscle, protects the brain. The thing about this molecule, alpha lipoic acid, it is both soluble in fat and soluble in water, both fat soluble and water soluble. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, gets into the brain, strengthens brain. Research is now being done to look at it in terms of helping to prevent cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. Alpha lipoic acid, uh, it can chelate heavy metals. And of course, one very important thing about it is that it helps to replenish other antioxidants. So it helps the body to replenish vitamin C and vitamin E and other polyphenols. And one important piece of research shows that it helps the liver cells and the heart cells and the kidney cells, and in fact, therefore, all the cells, to make more glutathione. Now, glutathione is the most important antioxidant naturally in every cell, intracellular antioxidant. We make it. Glutathione is made up of 3 amino acids, glycine, glutamic acid, and of course, the one that is most scarce, cysteine. That is why N-acetylcysteine is such a cheap and good thing. Don't mind it has the strong sulfur smell because it gives the body the cysteine it needs to make N-acetylcysteine, to make glutathione, sorry. So alpha lipoic acid helps the cells to replenish glutathione, and that in itself prolongs the survival of every single cell. So as the research continues, here is a powerful antioxidant. It is natural, it is in every cell, it is made naturally, but the levels decline with age, and chronic diseases and bad diet and so on tend to lower the levels. And this is one antioxidant that the experts say you can afford to supplement with if you're pre-diabetic, diabetic, obese as you age, because it helps the nerves, it helps the brain, helps to protect the organs, boosts glutathione. And now recent research is saying that at a higher dose, like 1,000 milligrams a day, it exerts against breast and lung anti-cancer properties. So it helps in the prevention and fight of breast cancer, lung cancer, other organ cancers. And they're looking at that even more definitively in ongoing, not only animal research now, but moving up to human research. So alpha lipoic acid, you will see it in most of the supplement sections of pharmacies. It is not expensive. And if you order it directly from Amazon or any place like that, it is quite cheap, but it is so good for neuropathy and so good. And you have to carry the dose up to 1,000 milligrams a day for diabetic neuropathy. So good in protecting the mitochondria from aging and helping them to last longer and improving the vitality of every cell. And by virtue of all of that, it strengthens the immune system. both innate and adaptive arm. Anything that reduces insulin resistance and strengthens mitochondria and boosts glutathione in every cell and helps to recycle other antioxidants like C and E. Anything like that, any molecule that does that, and alpha lipoic acid does it, will certainly positively impact on the immune system, making it powerful to fight off anything that comes a calling. And we certainly have to look at our immune systems as we go forward, and other things will happen. And these viruses are very smart and they will mutate. And we cannot always be absolutely dependent on the vaccine scientists to keep up with the mutation. They're doing their best. We must keep our immune systems in tip-top shape, because even if your immune system is not in tip-top shape, you may not even adequately respond to a vaccination, may not make the level of antibodies you need in response to the vaccine. So it is important then to keep your immune system in the best possible shape. Remember the things that dysregulate the immune system: junk food, obesity, lack of sleep, alcohol abuse, tobacco, high sugar diets. And you'll be surprised the amount of people at all ages, young people with dysregulated immune system, because they eat junk. And the thing is, when they do come down with it, with the COVID, you may hear it announced that they have no underlying condition. Nobody knows. They may be pre-diabetic and nobody knows, pre-hypertensive, nobody knows, immune system dysregulated, nobody knows, because they're eating junk. But they may be declared having no underlying condition when something happens. But we know that eating badly is itself an underlying condition, because it is going to dysregulate your immune system, even if you can't detect the dysregulation until it falls apart in the face of the onslaught of a virus. So the health message, our health message, and the principles of primary prevention are of crucial importance. We, as believers in the third angel's message, we even know of the theological importance, the prophetic importance of our health message as we approach end times. And we have to survive through the coming crisis if we are going to be making it to the end. So it is important for us to follow the light, do our best. Well, we trust God, but we can't claim to trust God and then not walk in the clear light He has given on healthy eating and what to avoid and the practices to pursue. And don't forget the intermittent fasting and taking a day or two off from eating. I'm fasting today right through to tomorrow morning, from this morning to tomorrow morning, and I fasted on Wednesday. It's good. It gives the cells a chance to recycle and autophage, or autophage, as we mentioned already. And it has been shown that intermittent fasting and fasting every now and then strengthens the immune system. So praying and fasting, good for the mind, good for the immune system, good for preparation for issues and crises ahead. And you see that Jesus, at the start of his ministry, underwent a prolonged fast. We don't have to do that. He did that to conquer our appetite for us. But when he was finished with that 40 days of fasting, he was ready physically for what was ahead. And all the research is showing that intermittent fasting and a day or two of fasting a week will be very good for our overall health and very good for the immune system, because the cells need a chance, they need a break from constant stuffing them with food. They need a chance to recycle, disengage, autophage, eat up junk, put out junk, and get themselves back together. All the research is showing that when you half-starve animals, but give them adequate vitamins and minerals and half-starve them in terms of calories, they all live longer. So there's overindulgence with calories that burns out the mitochondria and shorten our lifespan. And in the Western world, we have an epidemic of obesity, overindulgence, eating too much, and all the pernicious habits of this modern age. Research says it really took off since 1980, 1975 to 80. The fast food industry caught the world with the advertising techniques, and people just went mad eating junk, eating fast foods, eating junk, eating anything, eating all the time, cells not resting, and it completely dysregulated the endocrine and immune systems, and a lot of trouble. So our health message, which stresses abstemiousness, temperance, self-control, eating less quantity, but better quality, the role of fasting, all the principles of New Start, nutrition, exercise, water, trusting God, sleep, or rest, temperance, sunlight, all the principles of health reform. And of course, nutrition is at the top there. Fruits and vegetables, green leafy vegetables. Let's eat more of those on whole grains and good stuff. I find that no, there's some exotic rices around you can use. You can use red rice and black rice with some lentils and put some greens in it, and you're covered. Just small amounts of brown rice and lentils, more lentils than rice. Good nutrition because lentils are rich in zinc, rich in fiber, and rich in antioxidants. So we need to eat for health and let food be our medicine, and think in terms of the diet that we've been advised to follow to keep our immune system in tip-top shape and to keep our general health in tip-top shape. For those of us who are grown older like I am, we have to be even more vigilant. Of course, you can do your best and something still happens. We know that because we're mortal, fragile, and we live in a sinful, fallen world. But we should still do our best, even though something can still happen because we are all susceptible. We don't know what factors may be there. We should still do our best to follow the principles of primary prevention and health reform to keep our bodies and our immune systems in the best possible shape. So my time is about up now. I thank you. I'll just allow 3 questions before we close off to hand over to Elder Leacock for our last session. But I hope you understand the importance of that immune system being in tip-top shape, principles of health reform given to us as a people that we should be following, very important indeed. And I just mentioned alpha-lipoic acid. I will mention it again in the future, very important natural molecule for strengthening mitochondria and prolonging the longevity of each cell. All right, 3 questions permitted as our time is about gone. Anyone wants to ask questions? I will permit 3. Go ahead if you wish, speedily. If not, we'll wrap up.
Well, I am not asking a question, but I'm making a comment.
Okay.
It is sad and yet still happy to see that the world out there ran ahead of us in, well, they had to, through science, understand the body and how important fruits and vegetables and other things are to the body. When Adventists had this message all the time back there, yet wasn't projecting it. And now science is there, putting it out there that these things are important. So that is the happy part of it.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so true. All right then, well, let us close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for sharing this afternoon as we recapped the principles of primary prevention and lifestyle health, keeping our immune systems in tip-top shape, the importance of nutrition, and we revisited vitamin D with its companion K2 for keeping calcium in bone and out of arteries and strengthening the immune system, and we introduced alpha-lipoic acid, a molecule that is important and being looked at more carefully these days. Bless us all, maybe be enabled to walk in the light of primary prevention and health reform. We thank you in Jesus' name, amen. Okay, thank you. 2 minutes break and 2 minutes break, and Elder Leacock will be ready for the last session of today on family. So you can get up and stretch your legs, drink some water, and come back for Elder Leacock. 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon to everyone. Again, we're here to look at our family session. We have been looking at some critical differences between men and women, and I trust that you are following us today. We continue to follow us as we look at these critical differences between men and women. We will recap first, and I will ask you one or two questions before we move forward. But let us pause to pray. God and Father, we thank you for this privilege as we look at this twin institution apart from the Sabbath, our marriage, relations, twin institutions in the Garden of Eden. We pray that your Spirit may guide us into understanding how best we can learn to cope with the differences in sexes, in genders, so that we may know how best to be able to cope even in our marriage and family life. Bless and guide and direct. May your Holy Spirit be your teacher. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, I hope you are able to follow closely. Does anyone remember any of the differences that we mentioned last week between men and women? We said that these differences were critical and that they were important in our relationship with the opposite sex. Any differences at all?
Biological differences.
Biological differences, correct. Anywhere, any other? Do you remember any specific biological, pardon? Any specific biological difference? All right, biological or anatomically, the anatomy is different. The functions of the body organs are different as well. They work differently, either faster or slower.
Emotional differences.
Emotional differences, which is critical. And I hope you remember some of those emotional differences. You are? Somebody mentioned printer differences. All right. All right, let's continue. We looked at the different views of the world that men and women have, two different views. We're going to see a photograph. Well, sorry, I won't be able to download it unless I try something here. The difference in terms of brain structure and what looms up bigger in a man's mind compared to what looms up larger in a woman's mind. I will mention that to you. I'm not sure I can get it switch over, but as they said. And we looked at the different value system. Even though they hold the same view of something, they may look at it from a different angle. And a different set of rules by which they operate. Yeah. And some things that men prefer, that women prefer the opposite. You look at the different brain structures, you mentioned that just now. Because of the different brain structures, we think differently, we believe differently, we handle stress differently, we learn how to cope differently, and we behave differently as well. And those are critical differences. Just as when we are discussing these differences are like the fingerprints of our gender, as it were. They're neither good nor bad, but they're simply who we are as human beings. Men and women are different. And we saw also that a loving, intimate relationship, marriage, that is, they will leave room for gender differences without making the assumption that the other is wrong. There are gender differences as well. So we need to value the uniqueness of the other person and how they differ from us. That has caused so many problems in marriage and even divorce, when the people could have learned how to handle the differences in the other person, and how to cope, and how to be able to complement it. But in the past, people who are divorced have used the differences to push themselves further apart from each other. And things that they should have admired in the other person and used to their advantage, they have allowed them to push them further apart. These differences, which are supposed to complement. And a very mature person, spiritually mature person who depending on Christ is able to handle those differences much better than a person who's not spiritually mature. So most people tend to see these differences in others in terms of flaws and defects. And they see them as something bad in the other person. So men and women, we showed last week, differ in their approach to problems. Very important. Men are more ordinarily logical and black and white. Generally, women are more in touch with their feelings and use their moods along with the information to come to a synthetical solution. Very important. As I said before, these are just generalizations, and it doesn't always hold true, because sometimes it may be the exact opposite in some relationships. So you need to be observant and to seek to be understanding of each other so that you may know how to tolerate, number one, how to be adaptable, how to be flexible in terms of the defects, what we see as the defects, which are differences in the other person. Now, if we had known these things before we divorce, if we had known these things even before we marry, they would help us in our decision-making process in dealing with problems and coping with problems. Each one who understands this will be enabled to gel better with the other person. Remember, we said also that it takes only one person even to save a marriage. Only one. One person with understanding can save a marriage. Very important. Now, somebody mentioned just now that there are biological differences, and I want to highlight a few of them. Remember, whatever attracted you to your partner in the first place, it can be used to enhance the relationship. You study qualities, you look at the likability of the other person, and those basic differences between men and women can be used to enhance the relationship, as it were. Now, what are the differences? We also saw that the book of Genesis tells us that God made two sexes, not one. And he made them to complement each other in a variety of ways. And each one was designed, as it were, for a specific purpose. And they were designed to fit. They were specifically crafted to fit together. And that's not only true of our sexual relationship, but also psychological as well. And by the way, for those who may be shocked, the Bible teaches that sex is not a sin. It's very important to understand that principle. Sex is not a sin. In the marriage context, outside of that, anything is sin. But sex is not a sin. So have that in your mind. Many people have in their minds that sex is a sin. It's a dirty word. And we grew up with it, being taught by parents or grandparents, psychologically, incidentally, unconsciously, that sex is a sin. And don't even go anywhere near there because it's a sin. Well, and the eating of the fruit they believe was sex, and therefore it caused the downfall of man. Some people believe that sex is a sin. Sex is not a sin. I have to clarify that up front. From that, we can extrapolate that it is how we go about it and with whom we indulge in it, with other than a partner to whom you have made that lifelong marriage commitment. Yes, it is sin. And it can be promiscuous if indulged in without following God's divine rules. All right, so we are not alike as human beings. We will learn the point is we are different. We are not alike. And some differences between the genders can range like this. One, men and women differ in every cell of their bodies. This difference in the chromosome combination, XY, is the basic cause of development into either maleness or femaleness. That makes you a male or female. Don't mind all the transgender talk. It is either male or female. This is not a matter of preference or what we like or want to be. You're either XX or XY in chromosome combination. Women have a greater constitutional vitality than men because of this chromosome difference. And the United States of America has research that shows that women outlive men by 3 or 4 years. I've not done statistics in Barbados, so I can't say. The sexes differ in their basic metabolism as well. How is that? The woman's metabolism is lower than that of the man. They also differ in their skeletal structure. Women having a shorter head, a broader face, less protruding chin, shorter legs, and a longer trunk. As I said, of course, there are exceptions to this rule. And the woman has a larger stomach, a larger liver, a larger appendix, and a smaller lungs. Lung capacity is less. And in functions, women have several very important ones totally lacking in men. Some functions like menstruation, pregnancy, and lactation. We have men now that are seeking to get that, to become pregnant, be able to produce milk. All kinds of things are happening. All of these influence our behaviors and our feelings as well toward each other. You ever realize that? Yes, they're different. The same gland behaves differently in the two sexes. We mentioned last week, the amygdala behaves differently in men from women. And in men, it is more adventurous, risk-taking behavior that it leads to. All right. So women are more prone to have goiters, and it is associated with smooth skin, relatively hairless body, a thin layer of sebaceous fat that are important elements in the concept of personal beauty, and it contributes to emotional instability as well. If they don't like how they're looking, it can affect their emotional instability. She laughs and cries more easily. Very important. And I mentioned last week, I think it is, they have more of a language protein called FOXP2, that's women than men, and also other critical differences. The blood of the woman, for example, contains more water, 20% fewer red cells. And all of that helps in terms of the supplying of the oxygen to the cell. She gets tired more easily and is more prone to fainting. A woman sometimes may see a dead body and faint, whereas a man may not, generally speaking. All right. And when that experiment was tried some time ago, it showed that there were critical differences in terms even of the brute strength of men. Men are more 50% above the women in brute strength. All right. I'm just highlighting some of the biological. The woman's heart beats more rapidly. Blood pressure, and that's 80 beats to 72 for men. Blood pressure 10 points lower than men's own. And that varies from minute to minute. She has a much less tendency to high blood pressure, at least until after menopause. And the breathing power is lower. She can stand high temperatures better than man does, and the metabolism slows down less. And there are many, when it comes to emotional characteristics, again, her love is linked to self-esteem in a woman, and a man, romantic experiences with his wife are warm, enjoyable, and memorable, but not necessary. And for women, those emotional experiences can be her lifeblood. Her confidence, her sexual response, and her zeal and zest for living are often directly related to those tender moments when she feels deeply loved and appreciated by her man. Men, you have a responsibility. What are some of the emotional differences? Men and women are different by nature in the way they think, act, respond. These differences can be complementary, but very often they lead to conflict in marriage. We're going to come to those conflicts in marriage and what are some of the causes of those conflicts. So as we said last week, a woman is an emotional feeler, whereas a man is more of a logical thinker. Many times the logic does not always play out correctly. Sometimes it's that gut feeling or that feminine or female intuition that may prove to be right. For a woman, language spoken is an expression of what she feels. For a man, language spoken is an expression of what he is thinking. One is a feeler, the other one is a thinker. Language, that's generalizations again. Language that is heard by a woman is an emotional experience. But the language that is heard by a man is the receiving of information. And like information, women want the emotional experience from the information. Women tend to take everything personally. Men tend to take everything impersonally. They can move on easily. You can expect a woman just to forget it and forgive and move on. It doesn't happen like that. Women are more interested in details, the nitty-gritty. Men are interested in the principle, the abstract, and the philosophy. In material things, women tend to look at goals only. Men want to know the details of how to get there. In spiritual things or intangible things, the opposite may be true. Men look at the goals and women want to know how to get there. Men are like filing cabinets. They take problems, put them in the file and close the drawer. Women are like computers. Their minds keep going and going until the problem itself or the information put in can be easily retrieved and used for their own purposes. A woman's home is an extension of her personality. A man's job is an extension of his personality. What a statement, all right? Very, very. Women tend to be guilt-prone. Men tend to be resentful. Generalizations, again, as I mentioned. Women have a greater need for security and roots. Men can be nomadic. They move all around the place. Women like stability and security. Men are stable and level off. Women are always changing. Women tend to become involved more easily and more quickly. Men tend to stand back and evaluate. Men have to be told again and again, and women never forget. Why? Because emotional experiences last longer than rote memory, as it were. And men tend to remember the gist of something. Women tend to remember the details and sometimes distort the gist. These are generalizations, especially if people are moody or upset. It can color how they look at things. They see the same thing, but they may see it and describe it differently. So some people have very different beliefs about men and women, and those differences are used sometimes to separate them. God made from the beginning the difference between men and women. I went to the conference one time, and a woman said on the panel, I want all people here to know that there's absolutely no difference between a man and a woman. I know she was speaking in the context of gender, but a man said right on the panel too, I would hate to think that I am looking at that door and a woman comes in and I can't tell the difference between a woman and a man. Obviously, there are differences, many differences. Learning how to live with the differences is the key to a successful and a happy marriage. But most people can't handle the differences, can't tolerate those differences, and decide that they want out of the relationship. They marry another man or woman. A man marries another woman, or the woman marries another man. And then they see differences again, and then they end up divorcing again, so that they divorce 3 or 4 times. I'm not talking about cases of abuse, where a person gets a relationship and then marry thinking the person is Mr. Right and Mr. Perfect, and then the same abusive characteristics are manifested again, this time more life-threatening, and she has to get out, so she can marry and divorce because she has had bad experiences. But many a time it may be she gravitating towards certain types of men and their characteristics. Because sometimes what appears beautiful sometimes and golden may not always appear to be gold. All that glitters is not gold. I'm sure you remember that saying. All right, and the list goes on. Now, but let's get back to some more of these differences. So we are different completely in many ways, as it were. We need to know what those differences are if we're going to be able to tolerate and adapt and be flexible in our dealing with certain types of behaviors. Now, brothers and sisters are different, and they live in the same home, born to the same parent, brought up in the same background and training, and they cannot handle sometimes the differences in each other, and they fight, and brothers and sisters kill one another in this fight. People divorce at marriage age. But we are in a system where the more we see these differences, the more we hate the person. Then we should learn to tolerate the person, the differences in the person, and be able to tolerate them and bear with them. You don't have to make them part of your life, but you can learn to tolerate people's obnoxious behavior. And the Bible says a soft answer does what? Turn away wrath. But grievous words do what? Stir up anger. I've seen husband and wife gone apart, and they get along better after they're separated from each other than when they were together in marriage. And that's something that could have been avoided. Could have separated for a while, come back together if possible. Yeah, because after a while they're supposed to become more mature and recognize that the petty thing that they would have used for a divorce, the way out, has no holding at all. Now they are more matured. And sometimes this mashes up the children in the family. And then the father goes on to have other children, and the other child that was born, the first child that was born, gets angry and jealous because of what happened. The father seems to like the other children more than her, and that causes problems, psychological problems in the children. Without the father being present, I have done research really in the absence of a father in the home, and I have to deal with this at another Zoom meeting for church in St. George. But the absence of the father, whether he's in prison, whether he's dead, whether he's overseas, whether he's not a part of the child's life, can definitely have a psychological and negative impact, especially upon young male children. So they need to connect them. I remember connecting a young man with his father who was in prison. He used to behave badly at school, but when I connected him with his father who was in prison, and the father talked with him and connected, from the time he came back to school, he was a different young man altogether. Certain things settle in and fill in its place. He now understood why the father was absent, how the father was thinking about him, care about him. He made a silly mistake, he apologized, and he was sorry for not being present, forgive him, and all of that the father was able to explain, and he was a lot more balanced and stable for the rest of his school life. Interesting how knowing your father where he is and understanding and having a chat with him can make in the life of a male child. I hope we will get a chance to look at the role of fatherhood, the biblical role of fatherhood later on. So if we learn to understand and accept these differences of each other, there can be some pretty nice harmony that can take place between the two. But understanding and accepting these differences do not come easily. When one sees those differences, as whether one sees those differences are bad or stupid. Hence, as husband and wife, or even as family members, we work hard to correct, we try hard to correct the flaws in the other person that we see in our spouses and our children, to make them the one married to us just like us. That's the purpose of it, to make the one that we married to just like us. That's why people try to change the other person. Somebody wants to be in control in the relationship. They don't want to respect the differences. Somebody wants to be in control. And if the other person is not giving in, it creates a conflict, a problem in the relationship. All right, so there's much discussion in our world about gender differences, whether it is nature or nurture, biological or socialization. Is it biological or is it socialization? And in the 1980s, there was an explosion of research that showed that the stereotypical differences between men and women are not learned or socially engineered. They just are. The research dominates that men and women are wired to behave in certain ways, just like animals behave instinctively in various environments. I remember experiments being done in taking some birds, some eggs from birds from Africa and taken across to the United States of America, and allowed to hatch and breed and to grow, feed and grow. And they are built the nest the same way, in a unique way, compared like the ones that their parents used to do. That was passed on biologically to them. They were wired to behave that way and to build nests the same way. So even in the animal world, there are differences. So one way is not better than another way. It is just different. So refusing to understand and appreciate our male or female differences, or trying to cover them up, results in tragedy, conflict, chaos, conflict, and unhappiness takes over. And when individuals in a marriage cannot be who they are, let me repeat that. When individuals in a marriage cannot be who they are or feel marginalized for who they are, they retreat into fake behavior. They go into the mode of fake behavior. They fight, they withdraw, or they run away. So the key to all of this is understanding. Understanding. And it begins with who? Understanding begins with you. It has a power on our emotion. Understanding has a power on our emotion. For those of you who have learned about paradigm shifts, you will remember the story that I told some time ago of people were going home from work on a train. Everybody was relaxed, some reading the newspaper, some listening to music, some trying to catch up on the day by taking a little nap. And at one train station, in walked a man with 6 children. And the children were angry. They were stamping their feet. They were knocking people's paper out of their hands. And they were kicking shoes and feet out of the way. And they were angry. And the man sat down, put his head back, and relaxed, while the children were behaving hairwired. One man ventured to ask this man, "Excuse me, sir, you realize that all of us are trying to unwind after a heavy day, heavy work day, overloaded work, and your children are wreaking havoc in the train. Some of us are trying to catch up on sleep, some reading the newspaper and others, and your children are wreaking havoc in the train." The people were angry. And the man said, "Oh yes, you're right. We just came from the hospital, however, their mother just died. I don't know how to deal with it, and I'm allowing them to do the best way they know. The moment the people heard that, they changed their attitude from anger to pity and compassion. Because of understanding, there was a change of their emotions towards the children, and they grabbed them to themselves and comforted them and so on. It was a different approach. We call that a paradigm shift. That's just one example. A paradigm shift because of understanding the position and the problem differently. You got a different reaction. So understanding is the key, and it had the power on our emotions themselves. We call this a paradigm shift in our thinking in that particular area. Of course, it applies to other areas as well. So when we see things differently, we think differently. When we think differently, we feel differently. When we feel differently, we behave differently. You see how the order goes? Seeing things, thinking differently, feeling differently, behaving differently. So we don't have to worry about controlling our attitude or our behavior. They flow naturally and freely when we understand a situation. What does that tell you? It is more important to understand than agree. So if you're having a marriage problem, seek more to understand than to be understood. We concentrate on being understood, but we need to seek more to understand where the other person is coming from and to empathize with the person in their situation. So there are differences between the sexes that must be acknowledged and understood for marriage to be successful. And while men and women should certainly be treated as equal in terms of respect, opportunity, pay, and influence, whether political or moral equality, they are still not equal or the same. The essential differences in sexes are the result of the created order, and that is why we refer to each other as the opposite sex. Equality is never the goal of creation. Equality was never the goal of creation. It is distinction, variety, diversity. Equality was never the goal. Not everything is the same. Differences are everywhere in God's creation. Differences in flowers, in leaves, in snowflakes, in raindrops, in animals, differences even in the galaxies. God wanted us to showcase our differences, not fight over them. And once you understand why your husband acts that way, or why your wife thinks about that way particularly, it will change how you feel about him or her, though nothing has really changed. I hope you understand that. I've said a lot. What men think, what women think, what men expect, what women expect, how men are wired, how women are wired. If there is no understanding of these critical differences, there will be disappointment and frustration. Yeah? So if a person sees something different to you, don't try to change it. Probably give your perspective on it. And if it is not impacting on you negatively, leave it there and respect it. And where there's understanding, where there's commitment, where there's appreciation of these differences between the two sexes, even if needs are not met, even if your needs are not met, the right perspective about marriage will foster a healthier and a stronger relationship. Let me pause there and open up for any questions or comments before I move on. Any questions or comments? What if you see biological, psychological difference during the courtship? Should one overcome the urge to run and try to correct or change them? Sorry, somebody commented here. What if you see these biological or psychological differences during the courtship? Should one overcome the urge to run and try to get along? How does one gravitate to negative relationship over and over, and how can this be corrected? For example, if the woman gravitates to the man with a sad past and pretend of wanting to improve and change behavior. I know there's a question or comment. All right, the truth is, if you see these biological differences during courtship, that is the head time to discuss them, to see if the perspective of the other person. From that, you will know if it is a behavior that will lead to controlling or one that will lead to willingness to make it work and to understand. You can ask questions during that period. Should one overcome the urge to run and try to get along? I say no. The relationship should build smoothly with an understanding of the other's fault. And if you see the person is seeing and acknowledging what you are observing to be true and are willing to change course and is willing to put things in place to remedy the situation, that's a good sign. But if the person is saying, this is the way I am, that is how I do things, it is that way or no way, you know that it is trouble. Now, sometimes the people do gravitate to certain relationships based on their childhood upbringing, based on their past experiences, whether it be of abuse, of rape, of negativity in terms of verbal abuse in their relationship. And they see that and they think that it is normal behavior. It is not normal, it is abusive. And so they may gravitate to a father figure or to some male who may display those situations. And in other words, in a situation like that, caution is needed. You need to slow down and move slower and be more observant. If the person is not enhancing your personality and giving you a better understanding of how to relate to the person, you're putting down the wrong building blocks that will lead to the repetition of what happened in the past. The moment you see red flags, you should stop, hold back, and take a look, be observed. And sometimes the differences may not be spoken, it may be observed. And sometimes, yes, a counselor may be able to pick them up between the two. There are some things he will not or she will not be able to pick up even during counseling, because we put on a very nice face before we get married, and after we marry, as one person said, we unstrap the false leg, take off the wig, take out the false teeth. People are very good at preparing themselves to be as good as possible before they get married, before the ceremony. After the ceremony, instead of she making scrambled eggs, he has to scramble for his eggs. So what is your view when people talk about a 50-50 relationship? A 50-50 relationship leads to 50-50 consequences. You get some and the other person gets some consequences. In a relationship that is truly based on love, it is 100% to zero. You give all, expecting nothing, knowing and having the assurance that true love will awaken love in the other person. So when you give all, expecting nothing, you will not be ashamed nor disappointed. You will not be surprised nor disappointed. And that's what they talk about, the 50-50 relationship. The 50-50 relationship is more of a contract, but you get 50-50 results and consequences. Half you get and the other half is the other person gets. But it is not that kind of relationship. It is a relationship based on love. And love is the motivating power. Love is the inspiration. And love says, I love you, full stop. True love says that. Love you, period. In spite of how you may treat me, in spite of how you may get on, I love you still. It is not based on the lovability of the other person. It is based on the love that one is showing to the other. And that's the love of God. Sorry. So that's true love. Somebody else asked another question. What is your sorry? If I'm not satisfying your answer, please you can respond as we go along. If women look for the best mate possible, is it wrong for them to leave a boyfriend, fiance, or husband if he is a gardener or she is a doctor? If there's a male counterpart with a similar income, if women look for the best mate possible, is it wrong for them to leave a boyfriend, fiance, or husband if he's a gardener and she's a doctor? Well, you're looking for qualities in the other person, qualities that will enhance your relationship and your personality or your character and make your living the Christian life better, whether the person is a gardener or a soil technician or a refuse collector. And if she is a doctor and she's attracted to a gardener, in other words, in these cases, people should be counseled well concerning their motivation for wanting to get married to a person. And if the person is a good counselor, they will ask some strategic questions that will cause things to surface, or they will ask questions to see if the person understands what they're getting involved in. So income and job and all of that is not really the issue, even though sometimes they can become compatible. But once two people are developed, mature, they are attracted to each other's qualities and spirituality, they love one another and are willing to tolerate the differences. Sometimes the gardener may have more common sense than the doctor, because education is not common sense. Is that true? Education is not common sense. I hear nobody there. My mic is off. Attraction is not the only issue. It is a part of the issue, but not the only issue. Because when you first saw your spouse, you had to be attracted to them. Don't tell me you are attracted to their qualities when you never saw their qualities before. You saw them first, and they would have attracted you. Then you would have looked at and studied their qualities and listened to them talk to you. And as you listen to them talk to you, even though you admire them attractively, it may not appeal to you as being intelligent or even as what they appear. As one person said, when they got to know a beautiful, good-looking fella, the person said to me, "Oh, that's all there was to it, that look. Nothing more. Education, common sense, nothing else was there." But some people just want a one-night stand or a sexual relationship, or they like the fact about being in love with love, or they're infatuated, or they like to flirt, or something else, or lust. But it is not genuine love. You must be attracted, but genuine love focuses on qualities of the person. Which question is not answered? So if a woman looks for the best possible mate, if it is wrong for them to leave a boyfriend, no, it is not wrong if they are truly attracted to the person, if they love the person, if they study the qualities, and they can get along. Well, they can get along and complement each other. That is critical.
Sorry, yes, brother. So yes, the way I was looking at it was that it's not that attraction or getting along is the issue. In today's society, everyone wants to be able to live a comfortable life. So though her income may be good, and his may be good too, but not as high as hers, she may want someone with a similar income or higher that may be able to afford, better things for not only themselves, but the future children. Especially if they look at to send them overseas to study or whatever. So is it wrong for she to leave out one possible mate because of a lower income, because he's in a lower income bracket for a mate in a higher income bracket.
Right, that's what I said just now. The income and status and so on are not the reason for putting away the other person. It is studying the characteristics, studying the compatibilities, see what they call gels them together, if they are spiritually compatible, if they are emotionally compatible, if they connect well, and they don't just put away a partner. Because if you're attracted for the wrong reason to a boyfriend or a fiance and so on, and you see another person that you're like, you're attracted to that person, there's nothing wrong with leaving one off and going with the next. Nothing is wrong with that. You have to make the choice for life, as it were. It is true that an educated man may more use his sense, but often we have found sometimes that some people do not use common, who are very highly educated, do not use common sense. I remember in psychology class, the first assignment was, does intelligence have anything more to offer than common sense? Does psychology have anything more to offer than common sense? That was one of the first assignments. So all I'm saying is that your motivation must be right if you're going to switch. And of course, the husband doesn't fit in there, because if you're married already, the Bible says you are committed to enjoy it the best you can, seek to make it work. If you want to supply him with books for him to read, to become more au fait with how a husband should behave and how he can meet the needs of his wife, do so, but don't try to alter or change or coerce or compel him into what you want them to be, or she into what you want them to be. All right. Dumping a person for better income. So that's what destroys homes. Too much expectation. That's true. That's why you have to learn these things before you get married. You need to know these things before you get married. You don't have to agree with them. You have to know them. And there's a difference between certification and education, yeah. But again, common sense must be coupled with that intuition, as it were. Any other comments or questions? You don't have to agree with everything. I agree. But you need to look at it from the logical, scriptural context. Or are there brain differences between men and women? It is said that the brain differences of men and women are not only different, they operate differently. And then somebody said, the man may be making more money, but still not give the wife. That's true too. All right, I was saying that there are some differences. Some differences are, one, listen to some of the brain differences. You can comment in between while I answer the question. Some differences are part of the hypothalamus, called the preoptic area, that is significantly larger in males than in females. That's one difference. Men tend to be better at analyzing systems, better systemizers, while women tend to be better at reading their environment and reading the emotions of other people. They are better empathizers. Men are better systemizers, and women are better empathizers. They are better at reading their emotion, the emotions of other people, and better at reading their environment. That's the area where men need to listen to their wives. So biology, not culture, is the cause. Biology. Men have 4% more brain cells than women, and about 100 grams more brain tissue. But women have more dendritic connections, those are dendrites, more dendritic connections between brain cells. What does that mean? This means that women use their brain cells more efficiently and effectively than men do. More dendritic connection, the dendrites, those connections are what enable the nerve cells to jump from one to the other cell. Those dendritic connections, more effective. That's why we need to complement each other. So, sweetheart, what do you think? Get her perspective. Get his perspective. Very important. A woman's brain also has a larger corpus callosum, which allows a faster transfer of data. I hope you're listening. A faster transfer of data between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain than in a man's brain. Does that have implication for relationships? Sure does. Even when I do the brain structure of adolescent mind, we are able to show that this is what contributes to adolescent behaving and acting the way they do. Adolescent brain structure different to the adult brain structure. So the woman's brain has the largest corpus callosum, and that allows for faster transfer of data. So that means that they can analyze faster the information comes, and the better is analyzed. Better. But moods and emotions sometimes affect how they interpret the data. Y'all understand what I just said? The moods and emotions sometimes influence the way how they interpret the data, and it can lead to conflict. What's the difference between educated and certified? A certified means you get the paper, but it doesn't mean that you're more educated than another person. Another person may not have gone to university, but is very educated and can reason well and has a sharp brain. Another person has the papers, but they can't do the job like the other person, and they cannot reason like the other person. So because you're certified does not mean that you are the more educated. An educated man, somebody says, has proper sense, but a certified one could well be a gross fool. That's possible too. The university, people outside are complaining that the university, people are coming out of the university more qualified, but they cannot get the job done efficiently. That's what the university here has been bombarded with from the employer. So we need to take that into account. They need experience as well. They may be certified, but they need the experience, where somebody else has the experience. And education is not only about certification. But obviously defines education as the total sum of being able to use information in the proper way in order to enhance a person's living and their relationship to other people. That's true education. It's more than the pursuit of books, as it were. And it must be all-rounded. Many people are only partially educated. You need an all-round education. It's good to study, whether on your own or go to pursue a course of study in the area of sciences, yes, social science, knowledge of psychology, of mental health, of hygiene, and a variety of things. Because you never know, as the prophecy says, using that talent of education where you'll be called upon to serve. You need to get all the education you can in the different areas and try to keep up to date on it. Not one-sided only in one area or two, but as broad as possible. One person said, we need to put aside what the person can do for you financially and look at the spiritual. We too often guide our children to look for wealth and that of the world. This is the start of turning from being Christ-like and humble. That's why they reach adult stage. The care is for the things of the world. I have very rich friends, and it doesn't bring happiness to their life. And that is a reality. Very rich, very educated, a lot of money, but they're not happy. And you want something that will make you, so you need a knowledge of how to get along with people, how to cope with differences, how to make people happy. And that's the way of you making yourself happy. The way to be happy is to make others happy. Remember, I just said that women have more dendritic connections between their brain cells, and that allows them to use their brain cells more efficiently and effectively than the men. And I also said that there's a particular organ in the brain called the corpus callosum that allows for faster transfer of data once it is not influenced by moods and emotions. That is what allows for the passage of a thought, jumping from one nerve cell to the next and continuing. We have also seen in the past that things like sleep and alcohol can affect the transfer of a message, a nerve cell, electrically impulse, jumping from one nerve cell to the next and connecting. It can affect the function of that brain for the passing on of information. So the person's thought may not be logical or straight. Things like sleep and alcohol or drugs can affect the functioning. And the same thing is true for the functioning, the passing on of messages from one nerve cell to the next. If people allow moods or emotions to affect how they respond. Very important. So somewhere between ages 18 and 26 weeks into a pregnancy, the male's baby hormone, testosterone, starts to kick in gear, and the results are significant. The bundle of nerve fibers, we call it corpus callosum, connecting the right and the left hemispheres of the brain, start to disintegrate. Yeah? And this causes a breakdown of communication between the two hemispheres. Hold on 1 minute, just 1 minute. All right. We're still there? Sorry. Another person asked this question. The spirit of prophecy speaks to being equally yoked and compatibility in all things. That's true. Are not the norms in society influencing our understanding of compatibility and equally yoked? The answer is yes. The norms in society, what people should become, what they should do, who they should marry, why they should marry, who they marry, for what they should marry. Yes, those norms are influencing society. Somebody with a big salary so you can live a comfortable life. Somebody with good looks so that when you're walking the streets, you'll be proud of people looking at you. Somebody with a good status quo in society. Somebody who has good influence. All of that causes problems. And they are not compatible in many ways, and they are unequally yoked. They don't believe what you believe, and they are not Christian-minded as well. And that leads to, if there are differences and even in the belief system, it can lead to problems later on in terms of child rearing and parenting. So we need to be sure that we touch all the bases and we take all the where we should take so that we are sure. And we seek guidance from God and from Christian counselors. Guidance. That is the very thing that people don't want when they want to get married. They don't want nobody coming to tell them, wait, hold on, don't marry that person. Counselors are not, true counselors are not advisors. They only seek to guide and to get us thinking more broadly and seeking to analyze the problem and then let the persons make their own decisions. So there's a lot inside that question there. Yes, the Spirit of Prophecy has done a good job of spelling out what makes people unequally yoked and the fact that people should be compatible as far as possible. But people don't look at that. People think, once you're Christian, the person is a Christian, you can get married. That is not necessarily true. They may be incompatible. Because two people are Christian doesn't mean they should get married to each other. There are other things other than being Christian that should influence our understanding of who we should get married to. All right. So I was saying that somewhere between 18 and 26 weeks into a pregnancy, the male baby's hormone, which is testosterone, starts to kick in gear, and it results in significant developments. Those results are significant as well. The bundle of nerve fibers connecting the right and the left hemisphere of the brain start to disintegrate. And this causes a breakdown of communication between the two hemispheres. They're not relating to each other as they should. Women have more of the language protein, I mentioned before, FOXP2, than the men. And that means that they have better verbal and communication skills than men. What a significant understanding. All right. They can express themselves emotionally better than men. What did I just say? They can express themselves better emotionally than men. Now, that's very important to understand so that you can relate to the person in a better way, rather than have differences that causes a lot of depression, conflict, feelings of low self-esteem and others. And people don't know how to relate to these things. They become verbal in their abuse, which I have as a picture here, pushing your hand out of the, or coming out in the mouth, punching the person in the face. Verbal abuse. So if you don't want to destroy your marriage, control what comes out of your mouth. The left side of the brain houses the logic and the reasoning centers of the brain. The right side of the brain houses the emotion and the feeling, the judgment about beauty and social relationship. And you want both of them complementing each other. It turns out that about 85% of men end up being left brain thinkers, and this makes them extremely logical in their approach to life. Logical, but may not always be accurate. Because logic says airplanes fly, birds fly, therefore an airplane is a bird. Is that logical? Logical. Birds fly, airplane flies, therefore airplane is a bird. Logical, but not commonsensical, not accurate. So it's one thing to be logical, very important. Don't get me wrong. To use the right side of your brain, yeah, the left side of your brain, sorry, logic and reasoning center, but you also have to have an impact and an input from the right side of the brain, which houses the emotion, the feeling, and the judgment. So right there within the human brain, there's the male and female counterparts. Sometimes male have feminine trait and male trait, and even the female has some masculine and feminine traits. God has both, male and female. So there's no, well, some people have male angels and female angels as well, and baby angels. We have a lot of things blowing around the place. All right, so there's a lot. So that impacts on the way we solve problems and how we act in relationship. And our job is to study it out, to contemplate, to observe. And if you're a person who has done personality assessment and personality training in how to personality difference and assessment, you may be able to spot those differences. And you can even predict with a certain degree of accuracy just how it will develop, what type of relationship will be developed, and whether it will last or crash later on. It's possible. So all of these differences impact on the way we solve problems and how we act in relationship. This makes men, I'll come into your comment in a minute. This makes men very task-oriented. Men like to do a lot of tasks, a lot of jobs, and they talk highly about their job and what they do. Women would more be concerned about relationship, children, their friends, female friends, and child rearing, and issues to deal with the house. They have a better vision of how what looks where than men. Because the wife may call and says, well, put the potatoes in the pot and prepare a meal. And she comes home and the man has the potatoes peeled and put in the pot, but the stove not on. Some people take that extreme. And that makes men more task-oriented. Does not mean that men cannot perform right brain function, such as feeling and emotion, but they function from the right side less well. They are more left brain oriented than the women. Hence, men do not get in touch with their feelings easily. And people are often saying men should not cry. Big men, strong men do not cry. So if men and women are to get along with each other, they have to learn to communicate effectively. And we are coming to that next. They have to learn to communicate effectively with each other, understand each other's emotion, and be able to relate to them, and to be able to resolve issues, understanding each other's differences. That's the sum of marriage if it's going to work. And this will lead to better coping skills, greater happiness to both healthy husband and wife, and healthy individual relationships as well. Now that is what we call a good marriage. All right, my battery is running. Hold on, let me plug in. All right, my battery is running low. Sorry for that. All right, I stopped there for the time being, and there's more because we're going to deal with relationship communication as an essential ingredient and how we can apply these differences in the area of communication with each other. We're going to look at communication very broadly next week. Communication, not only in marriage, but in the family life itself, because we look at God's blueprint for marriage and family life. Now let's see the last questions here before we close off, unless there are any additional comments or questions. From time immemorial, compatibility, etc., the male was expected to be the one in the forefront in all things. Today, the male plays a secondary role to women, hence his feminization. House husband, etc., is now the accepted norm. Is that what God intended? And the answer is no. God intended the male to be initially the breadwinner and the wife to play a supportive role, whether it be in working or working within the home. From the creation, women were supposed to be a help meet for the men. And they're supposed to be compatible with each other. But with social, economic statuses changing, they have been the women who have more educated themselves. Men stay on the block line, don't educate themselves. Women get the jobs and then develop and grow to become CEO and the manager. And then the men accept a role of a job under the women. And nothing is wrong with a woman being, as I said, equal pay and status rising. But it is how she uses that power of influence. If she's still a humble woman and a Christian, great for that marriage. But society has, yes, has influenced and socialized the whole family structure to the point where they are different and they are more conflicting rather than complementary. Let me just get back there a minute. The feminization of women has a history behind it. The feminization of men, sorry, has a history behind it that goes back even to slavery and how men were treated, their psyche. Professor Hilary Beckel has done a wonderful job in showing some background of the Black male and female in terms of diabetes, what was fed to them during slavery, and what came through their system as they grew up. Hence, men may be more prone to certain things than other Black people, that is, than other of their counterparts, race-wise, even though there's one race, Black race or white race, there's only one race, but identifying the one that the Black people have passed through has led to some roles being undertaken by men and some roles, some giving up of responsibility by men, so that the nuclear family is more a new phenomenon than co-jointing living and union, as it were, just the joining of men and women for the purpose of reproduction. So there are a lot of things that have changed, and some people have not yet accepted. Men in the Caribbean culture and setting prefer to roam different women rather than tie down to one. They're afraid of commitment, and they prefer to move from one to another or to have several concubines. Whereas women would prefer one. Some women have adopted the policy of going with different for the sake of sustenance and provision for children and family members. So there's a lot that's going on, abuse, and even during this COVID-19, a lot of abuse, a lot of changing of rules, as it were, have been accepted. And that is not, all of that is definitely not God's will. Only the Christian role of men and women stands out in stark contrast and higher than the world. Somebody wrote, speaking of differences between men and women's perspective, this is the question that broke up a relationship. If you had the opportunity to gain one ability or quality that you would, what would you want? The woman answered, the ability to tell the future so that something can be corrected before they happen. His response was, how stupid you are. It would send you mad to know the future, and you could disrupt the timeline of other people. Her response was, what about prophets? He said, you are not so smart. That had nothing to do with it. The language itself to each other doesn't sound pretty encouraging. And it is more of an argument in terms of perspective. And I'm seeing through this an attitude coming out towards the woman, the man towards the woman. Well, Solomon asked for wisdom and understanding. And with women, and with wisdom and understanding came many other things. Wealth and discretion, discretionary powers, and so on. If I personally had to act, I would ask God for wisdom and understanding, not just in knowing how to deal with people, but also in the relationship, in the understanding of the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation. Sometimes this kind of language is used in an argument between the two, when you should more be trying to understand what the other person means, asking for clarity about why they would want such a quality, how it could enhance the relationship with others, and how you would be happy for them to know. And that you can know the future by exercising the wisdom of God, asking God for wisdom so that you may know how to guide your family and children aright. But that's my take on it. I don't know if I missed the mark or what, but that is definitely sound like a heated argument right there. He's not too happy about if she had the ability to tell the future. Some things can be corrected before they happen. That's wisdom. Wisdom is the principal thing we need, not a knowledge of the future. And people go to fortune tellers to have their sight bettered when the fortune teller is wearing spectacles. And interesting that fortune tellers have a job of trying to make money from people, but they themselves, and they will tell you what the winning lotto ticket is, but they themselves cannot win the lottery. Any reason why? That's been a problem for me. Why is it that they can foretell the future, tell you what the winning lottery ticket number is, and then they want to be paid for giving you that information, when they themselves can put in the winning lottery number and win the money for themselves? And the other day when somebody came from a certain country to Barbados and were teaching people how to practice voodoo, and somebody said something about it, the person took them to court. The person could have cast a spell on them, but they took them to court to try to sue them for the negative comments. So it doesn't mean these people don't have all the answers, but they pretend to have all the answers, how to help you solve your relationship. Read the daily paper, you see what I mean about the psychics and the astrologers, the fortune tellers, and those who are involved in the daily horoscope. All of that is obia and voodoo in different guises. Up to now, there are some people in the church who still read them and believe them, even though their generalization seem to be true, but they are not always true. All right, thank you for another. Any other questions lingering or comments? Remember, next week we're going to be looking at communication as a means of God's blueprint for happiness within marriages and family. Communication is key. We're going to look at different aspects of communication, and that would make us better able to communicate to our spouses and our children, less conflict, less differences, and more harmony and happiness. The more harmony we have, the more happiness we'll obtain. All right, so I want to say thank you very much for all those who have asked questions and those who have listened and participated. And I must assure you that as we follow God's blueprint for marriage and family life, we will live happier lives, less conflict, better understanding, better coping with differences between male and female, and have better churches. As a result of better homes and family, we will have better churches and learn how to cooperate so that we can make better representatives and witnesses of Jesus Christ in our homes and in our families, in the neighborhood, at work, at church, at school, wherever we go. Let us pray. Our dear God and Father in heaven, thank you for this session and all the sessions during the day. From the morning, the Sabbath school, the midday, the children's program, the health, and even this family life session. Let your spirit take control. Give us wisdom so that we are better this week than we were last week, as spouses, as family members, as children, as members representing Jesus Christ, going out and making an impact upon the lives of others so that we can have a greater love for souls and seek to warn them of Christ's soon coming. So guide and direct us individually. Teach us how to know you and to love you and to become the kind of person that will give that final warning message to mankind, leaving the right impact upon minds of Christ and his righteousness, and the Holy Spirit completing the work in their souls, preparing us for your second coming and the end of this world. We thank you again for hearing, for answering our prayers. In Jesus' wonderful name, we pray. Amen. May God bless you richly, and I trust that you continue to follow these principles and let them guide us into all truth.